is a branch of biology which deals with the identification, classification, and nomenclature of living organisms. So it involves three things. Taxonomy involves identification, classification, and nomenclature of the living organism. It can be plants or animals. That is what we define it as taxonomy. So taxonomy is also called as the gateway for biological sciences, because only through taxonomy we can identify what the organism is. What we are studying we can identify using only the concepts. Only when we know the taxonomy we can identify the organism. So in the previous chapter, Living Word, we studied about the binomial nomenclature, the rules and regulations for binomial nomenclature. I had already told you all living organisms are having a scientific name which involves binomial nomenclature. They have two names, generic name and species name. So example, Homo sapiens. Homo is the generic name, sapiens is the species name. Similarly, housefly, the scientific name is Musca domestica. So Musca is the generic name, domestica is the scientific name. So all of them have this scientific names with two names, which we call it as binomial nomenclature. So this binomial nomenclature was put forth by Carolus Linnaeus. So and this binomial nomenclature is also Carolus Linnaeus is also commonly called as father of taxonomy because he has done extensive work on classification. So this biological classification plays an important role. Okay, so that we will discuss step by step how many kingdoms are there. So what is the present type of modern system of classification, the accepted modern system of classification. We'll discuss about that step by step in this topic. So biological classification, before I start that, I have this slide just to show you the diversity of life, plant and animal life. Classification becomes a necessity. So it is for us to understand and study the animals as well as plants. So the biological classification becomes a necessity. So the biological diversity of living organism also makes us necessary to study biological classification. So we had discussed about systematics, which deals with the study of diversity in organisms and their interrelationship. That is what is systematics about. So let us proceed with this chapter, biological classification. So the classification system Aristotle has put forth this earliest classification. Aristotle is considered to be the father of biology, father of zoology. See, Aristotle's scientific work might not be significant today, but he was a pioneer. So pioneer is one who begins the work. So pioneers have no role model. So Kalpana Chawla says that pioneers have no role model. Aristotle also had no role model. At this part of time, there was no internet, there was no publication of books, there was no printed books at all available, and he did not have any biology teachers also. So he had to study nature for the first time. So after early man is slow progress, Aristotle was one who started making a scientific basis for classification of organisms. So he classified plants into trees, shrubs, and herbs, and he classified animals into two groups: those with red blood and those without red blood. So he has a very primitive type of classification and a very simple type of classification. So it was based on his material condition. So Aristotle could not study about microbiology, cell structure, and other things, because at that part of time there was no invention of microscope. So the material conditions were primitive. So in that primitive condition itself, he studied. So that is the reason Aristotle is a pioneer in classification. His classification of plants was into trees, shrubs, and herbs, and he classified animals into two groups: those with red blood and those without red blood. So animals with red blood, he placed mammals, lizards, birds, and fish. Those without red blood, he classified them further into two types: the hard-bodied and the soft-bodied. Under the hard-bodied, without red blood, insects were placed. Under the soft-bodied, without red blood, he placed with shell and without shell. So with shell, he placed shellfish, and without shell, he placed the jellyfish. This was the primitive type of classification that Aristotle put forth. Then the two kingdom classification was proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. You can see the photograph of the person. So the two kingdom classification was put forth by Carolus Linnaeus. He classified organisms into two kingdoms: kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. So he said that the entire living world consists of only two kingdoms: plant kingdom, animal kingdom. So even this is not acceptable. Why this two kingdom system is not acceptable is, so he did not take into consideration the unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. He did not take into consideration the type of nucleus, like prokaryotic and eukaryotic types. He did not take into consideration the difference between plant cell wall and fungal cell wall. Plant cell wall is made up of cellulose, hemicellulose, and pectin, whereas a fungal cell wall is made up of chitin. So he placed even fungi under kingdom Plantae. So a lot of such uh, discrepancies were there, where he could not give a clear-cut distinction between them. So even though historically the two kingdom classification is important, but from the scientific word, it was not sufficient to explain the living organisms utilizing two kingdoms, because there were various type of discrepancies. The drawbacks of two kingdom classification, or the disadvantages of the two kingdom classification. The prokaryotes like bacteria, cyanobacteria, and the eukaryotes like fungi, mosses, ferns, gymnosperms, and angiosperms, both of them were included under plants because they had cell wall, but they had a lot of differences that was not taken into consideration. So Carolus Linnaeus had placed both prokaryotes and eukaryotes under plant kingdom just because they had cell wall, and he ignored the other differences that they had, like they had a primitive type of nucleus without nuclear membrane nucleolus. All those things he did not take it into consideration. So that is the first drawback. Second one, Linnaeus in his two kingdom classification included the unicellular and multicellular organisms in the same group. So he did not place them separately. So that was another drawback of the two kingdom classification. Example, Chlamydomonas and Spirogyra were placed under algae. You can see both of them. Chlamydomonas and Spirogyra were placed under algae. Chlamydomonas is unicellular, Spirogyra is multicellular. So he did not differentiate between unicellular and multicellular organism. So the third drawback of his classification is, so he did not differentiate, Linnaeus did not differentiate between heterotrophic fungi and autotrophic green plants. He also ignored the cell wall of fungi, which is made up of chitin, while the plants have a cell wall made up of cellulose. He also ignored that differences. So that is also one of the things that uh, Linnaeus did not take into consideration. So the various drawbacks or disadvantages of two kingdom classification is, so Linnaeus included both prokaryotes and eukaryotes under plant kingdom just because they had cell wall, and he ignored the other differences that they had, like prokaryotes have a primitive type of nucleus without nuclear membrane and nucleolus, and eukaryotes have nucleus with nucleolus and nuclear membrane. So he ignored that important feature of prokaryotes and eukaryotes, and instead he placed them under the plant kingdom just because both of them had cell wall. Then the second drawback was, Linnaeus in its two kingdom classification did not include unicellular and multicellular organisms, uh, included unicellular and multicellular organisms in the same group, and he did not separate them. So he placed Chlamydomonas and Spirogyra under algae. So he also, Linnaeus did not differentiate between heterotrophic fungi and autotrophic green plants. Fungi having chitinous wall, while the green plants are having cellulosic cell wall. He ignored those and he placed fungi and plants and a plant kingdom. So these were the disadvantages or drawbacks of the two kingdom classification. So to overcome this drawback, the five kingdom classification was put forth. The five kingdom classification is the most accepted type of classification at present. So modern day we accept the five kingdom classification. So this five kingdom classification was put forth by Robert Whittaker in 1969. He put forth this five kingdom classification. R.H. Whittaker or Robert H. Whittaker. So in this five kingdom classification, he has the first kingdom is kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom fungi or mycota, he called it as kingdom Plantae or Metaphyta, kingdom Animalia or Metazoa. So these were the five kingdoms that he uh, classified the living organisms into. So Robert H. Whittaker reclassified all the living organisms into five kingdoms: kingdom Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. His classification was based on certain modern uh, studies and details. Like he took for his classification the parameters like cell structure, thallus organization, the mode of nutrition, whether they are autotrophic or heterotrophic, if they are heterotrophic, whether they are parasitic or saprophytic. So all those he took into consideration: mode of nutrition, the type of reproduction, and phylogenetic relationships. When we are talking about phylogeny, it implies evolutionary position of the organism, whether they are primitive type or recent modern organisms. See now, bryophytes, pteridophytes, they are all primitive type. They were found even in the age of the dinosaurs. So Jurassic period also you found, whereas angiosperm is recent in evolution. So he placed and classified organisms even on phylogeny. Like primitive types were placed early and the advanced forms were placed later. So this sort of attributes he had in his five kingdom classification. So in five kingdom classification, Robert Whittaker took various criterion for the classification like the cell structure, thallus organization, the mode of nutrition, type of reproduction, and the phylogenetic relationships. Based on these parameters, he classified the living organisms into five kingdoms. That is kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom fungi or mycota, kingdom Plantae or Metaphyta, kingdom Animalia or Metazoa. So now this is a ready reckoner where you can easily understand the differences between the five kingdoms, and he has given those parameters. Based on that parameters we have classified them. See, in this five kingdom, kingdom Monera has cell type is prokaryotic. That is, they have a primitive type of nucleus. The nucleus will not be having nuclear membrane and nucleolus. See, in prokaryotic organisms, both nucleolus and nuclear membrane are absent. That is one attribute of kingdom Monera. So the second type in Protista, fungi, Plantae and Animalia, all of them are eukaryotic organisms, including human beings. We are all eukaryotic organisms. U means true. True type of nucleus we have. What is the true type of nucleus that we have? Our nucleus has a nuclear membrane and nucleolus. So we are eukaryotic organisms. Okay, so the remaining four kingdoms, Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia, all of them are eukaryotic organisms. Only the kingdom Monera includes prokaryotic organism. So the cell wall is the next attribute. In Kingdom Monera, they are made up of non-cellulosic material. They have polysaccharide and amino acid, like an acetyl galactosamine. In case of bacteria, they might be having their cell wall made up of muramic acid, which has N-acetyl galactosamine. That is a polysaccharide and amino acid. So in case of Protista, the cell wall is present in few organisms like Euglena, they have a cell wall. So in case of fungi, cell wall is present, but they are made up of chitin. In plant A, cell wall is present, but it is made up of cellulose. And in Animalia, cell wall is absent. So in Animalia, there is no cell wall. So nuclear membrane is absent in Monera. Nuclear membrane is present in the remaining four kingdoms. The body organization in case of these five kingdoms are Monera is cellular, Protista is also unicellular. So Kingdom Monera and Kingdom Protista are unicellular organisms. Fungi, they are having multicellular nature and loose tissue. In plants, you have the tissue and organs. In Animalia, you have tissues, organ, and organ system type of body organization. So the body organization in case of Kingdom Monera and Kingdom Protista is they are unicellular forms. In Kingdom Fungi, they are multicellular and they have loose tissues. So in Kingdom Plantae, the body organization is they are made up of tissues and organs. In Kingdom Animalia, they are either made up of tissues. The body organization is either tissue or organ or organ system. So that is the another attribute which differentiates this five kingdom. Then mode of nutrition. In case of Kingdom Monera, they are autotrophic. Autotrophic means they are able to synthesize their own food. See, in case of Kingdom Monera, the mode of nutrition is they are autotrophic. So this autotrophic is they can synthesize their own food either by chemosynthesis or by photosynthesis. So they can synthesize their own food either by chemosynthesis or photosynthesis. And a few of the Kingdom Monera, they are heterotrophic. That is, they are either saprophytic or parasitic. See the examples for Kingdom Monera, the examples are bacteria, blue-green algae. Blue-green algae is also called as the old names for blue-green algae are cyanophyceae or mixophyceae. The new name for blue-green algae is cyanobacterium. Okay, so the heterotrophic and chemosynthetic as well as pathogenic forms of nutrition you can notice in bacteria. See, bacteria, mycoplasma, then the blue-green algae, they are placed under Monera. Why they are placed under Monera? Because they are prokaryotic organisms. They have a non-cellulosic cell wall. Their body organization is unicellular. The nuclear membrane is absent. The mode of nutrition in case of this Kingdom Monera, they have almost all types of mode of nutrition. You find autotrophic organisms which can produce their own food either by chemosynthesis or by photosynthesis, and they are also heterotrophic. So whether they are either saprophytic or parasitic in nature. When you're talking about saprophytic, so these organisms are dependent upon dead and decaying organic remnants of plants and animals. So we call them as saprophytes. If they are deriving their energy by breaking down or decomposing the dead and decaying plant and animal remnants, we call them as saprophytes. Parasites are pathogens. They affect the host. See, with the nutrition in case of Protista, they are autotrophic, that is, they undergo only photosynthesis, and heterotrophic. Under Protista, you come across the examples of protozoan protists, like you have amoeba, entamoeba, paramecium, then plasmodium, trypanosoma. They are all examples of protozoan protists. There are also photosynthetic protists like Euglena is an example for Protista. Then there are also the slime molds. So there are different uh, examples for Protista. So Protista are eukaryotic organisms. The cell wall is present in a few of them like Euglena, the nuclear membrane is present. They are cellular in nature, that is unicellular. Mode of nutrition is they are autotrophic, either photosynthetic or heterotrophic. So if you want to know the attributes of Protista, read it column wise. If you want to know the differences, read it row wise. So the next kingdom is fungi. The mode of nutrition in fungi is they are heterotrophic. Either they can be saprophyte or they can be parasites. So they are heterotrophic. Either they can be parasitic or saprophytic. So fungi, the examples are Penicillium notatum, from which we extract penicillin, yeast, which is used in bakeries as well as the uh, beverage industries, like in the manufacture of wine, the manufacture of beer. So they use this fungi yeast. So the beverage industries and bakeries, they use this yeast. That is also a fungi. Then the common edible mushroom, that is the button mushroom, is an example for fungi. Button mushroom, oyster mushroom. Then you have this milky mushroom. So these are all edible mushrooms which we consume, and they are all placed under fungi. Many of the plant diseases are also caused by the fungi, like red rot in sugarcane. Sometimes when you are eating the sugarcane, you find in between reddish in nature. Okay, that is a fungal disease, and they taste very much acidic or bitter in taste. So that is the red rot in sugarcane. So there is a potato famine which is caused only by a fungal infection, where nearly 5 million people died in the Ireland. So because of this potato famine at the beginning of the 19th century. I'll share you this video in the group later. So that was because of one fungi, Phytophthora infestans, which destroyed the potato plants, and that led to this potato famine. Then in plantae, so the mode of nutrition is autotrophic or photosynthetic. Plants, they include bryophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms, pteridophytes, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. They are all the examples for plantae. So they are autotrophic, that is, they undergo photosynthesis. So because of plants, all the other living organisms exist. That is the reason in ecosystem we call the plants as producers. You should remember about that. Animals, the mode of nutrition is they are heterotrophic, holozoic, or saprophytic. So they are heterotrophic. They can be herbivores or carnivores, or holozoic, both herbivore and carnivore, or they can be saprophytic. That is, they feed on the dead and decaying remnants of plants and animals. So that sort of heterotrophic nutrition you observe in case of animals. So based on this parameters, Robert H. Whitaker, he classified the organisms in the living world into five kingdoms: kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom fungi or mycota, kingdom plantae or metaphyta, kingdom animalia or metazoa. Okay, these are the five kingdom classifications that we have. So now we'll begin with the first kingdom, kingdom Monera. So you can see the slide here. The background has the bacteria, which is the box shaped or rod shaped bacteria, bacillus, we call it as. So, kingdom Monera, you can see this bacteria, which is rod shaped or box shaped bacteria. So, bacteria are the most abundant microorganisms, uh, and they have a wide variety. In Kingdom Monera, we have the bacteria, cyanobacteria, that is the blue-green algae, and mycoplasma. They are all the examples for Kingdom Monera. So Kingdom Monera includes prokaryotic organisms. So you should be aware about that. So bacteria are the most abundant microorganisms. So hundreds of bacteria are present in the soil. They are also present in extreme habitats such as hot springs, deserts, snows, and deep oceans. So they are also present in these regions. Many of the bacteria are parasitic. That is, they are pathogenic in nature. See, there is a hairline difference between parasites and pathogen. Both of them require the host. So, but only thing is pathogen causes disease. See, many bacteria cause a lot of disease, like the plague is caused by Yersinia pestis, which is a bacteria. Tuberculosis is because of a bacteria, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. The leprosy, Vibrio leprae. So it is because of the bacteria. Then there is cholera, Vibrio cholerae. Cholera is caused by again a bacteria. So leprosy is by Mycobacterium leprae. It is caused by bacteria. So many diseases are caused by the bacteria. So they are pathogenic or parasitic in nature also. In the slide above, the importance of, so you can now you have a lot of microorganisms which are not visible through our naked eye. So always sanitizing your hands, frequent hand washing, and keeping your hands hygienic is required, especially at present when viruses are also on a go. Today, the entire world has come to a standstill because of one virus, that is the coronavirus, isn't it? So we are all under lockdown because of that. They are spreading through air, contamination of air by the droplets from infected person. So that is how the viral disease, the corona disease, is being spread. Okay, so the entire lifestyle of all of us have changed because of this one pandemic caused by the coronavirus. So the bacteria have also caused havoc. Earlier, when cholera used to come, many people used to die, uh, and the entire villages used to be wiped out. There were this was an epidemic and pandemic also. The plague, which is also caused by this bacteria. It was called as black widow death. So the entire villages used to be wiped out. Even the plague was air contaminated disease. So that is the havoc that these organisms have. So even though they are very microscopic, they have a big impact on multicellular organisms like human beings. So we are presently having a lot of vaccination for the tuberculosis, pneumonia, the whooping cough, pertussis. These are all bacterial diseases which are presently we don't have them because we are vaccinated. So remember the pathogenic role of this bacteria also. They have also caused uh, death causing entire human population was reduced because of this the plague as well as cholera caused by this bacteria, and even tuberculosis had a havoc on human beings too. See the other slides here, you can notice the bacillus bacteria, the rod-shaped bacteria. In a microscope, if you notice the second slide, this is how it will look. The third slide is a bacillus bacteria with large number of flagella. It is distributed throughout its body. The flagella distribution is throughout its body. So these slides are only for creating interest. They don't, you need not have to practice it. They are not meant for your drawing part of it. Whenever you have to practice diagrams, I'll let you know. See, based on the shape, bacteria are of four types. If they are spherical in shape, we call it as coccus bacteria. So coccus, they are non-motile. The only variety of bacteria which is non-motile is coccus bacteria. If the bacteria is spherical in shape, we call it as coccus. If they are rod-shaped or box-shaped, we call them as bacillus. If they are comma-shaped, we call it as vibrio. And if they are spiral-shaped, we call them as spirillum. So based on the shape, bacteria are of four types: the coccus, bacillus, vibrio, and spirillum. Coccus is spherical in shape and they are non-motile. So bacillus is box shaped or rod shaped. Then the vibrio is comma shaped. Spirillum is spiral shaped bacteria. So in the next slide, the examples are there, like Streptococcus pneumoniae, which causes pneumonia. They are coccus bacteria, and two of them are together. See, the Clostridium tetanus is caused by this comma-shaped bacteria. Treponema pallidum. See, there are various sexually transmitted diseases are also caused by bacteria. Like Treponema pallidum, we call it as the syphilis is caused by Treponema pallidum. The gonorrhea, another sexually transmitted disease, is also caused by bacteria Neisseria gonorrhea. Cholera, it is a comma-shaped bacteria. You can see this Vibrio cholerae, which is comma-shaped. So these are all examples of different shapes of bacteria, and they are also causing a lot of diseases. Okay, then there is Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus has a large number of group of spherical bacteria together. Then Legionella pneumophila, that is which also causes pneumonia-like symptoms. So they are box-shaped or rod-shaped. Then Salmonella typhi. So this is a box-shaped bacteria that is bacillus with flagella distributed throughout its body. So Salmonella typhi causes typhoid. See, even typhoid is caused by bacteria. Then Clostridium botulinum. This bacteria causes the food poisoning, especially in canned or tin packed foods. So in canned foods or tin packed foods, this bacteria, if it is present, it causes food poisoning. So we call it as botulinism. So the Clostridium botulinum causes botulinism, that is food poisoning in canned or tin packed food. Okay, then Streptobacillus moniliformis is also one type of bacteria where you can notice the bacillus, they are all arranged in filament like structures. The Helicobacter pylori, so as the name indicates, they are almost spiral shaped with flagellum. So this Helicobacter pylori, I would like to state about this particular one because one of the Australian biologists, he got Nobel Prize for medicine because he discovered that Helicobacter pylori causes the gastric ulcers. He said that the ulcer is formed because of bacterial infection, and for showing and proving this experiment, what he did was he swallowed a culture of Helicobacter pylori in a Petri plate. He swallowed it. And later, he was suffering from the gastric ulcer. And by taking antibiotics, he was able to treat this gastric ulcer. So, this he published in a paper, and it was a breakthrough uh, publication, and he got Nobel Prize for this. So the scientist name, Australian biologist name is Barry Marshall, who worked on this Helicobacter pylori. So Helicobacter pylori causes ulcers in human beings, and I just shared with you the strange experiment that Barry Marshall did by swallowing this culture media of Helicobacter pylori and showing to the world that gastric ulcer is caused by this bacteria. See, again, you need not mug up all this different types of bacteria. I'm just telling you the various varieties of bacteria and the diseases that they cause. So what you have to observe is the shape of these important harmful bacteria, their shape, and what nature it is. You have to observe this. Okay, any lab technician or a microbiologist, he identifies diseases using these attributes of those organisms. So remember about the bacteria, which are of four types based on their shape: coccus or spherical, bacillus or rod shaped, vibrium or comma shaped bacteria, spirillum or spiral shaped bacteria. The next thing that I wanted to discuss about in Kingdom Monera or bacteria is the bacterial structure. See, you have to mug up this diagram. First, let us understand the diagram. See, the bacteria has outermost slimy layer called as capsule. So inner to this capsule, they have cell wall. So the bacteria has an outermost slimy layer called as capsule, and inner to this they have a cell wall. Inner to the cell wall they have a plasma membrane. So these are the three outermost layers, and they have a flagellum. Flagellum has a basal body and hook and the filament part, which we call it as the flagellum. So the bacterial flagellum they have. On the surface of bacteria, you can find numerous the finger-like structures called as pili. See, pili does not help in locomotion. During conjugation process, the pili of two different bacteria, they come together and their membrane is going to dissolve and they form a continuous bridge. We call it as conjugation bridge. That is the reason many times pili is also called as sex pili because they are involved in the sexual reproduction of bacteria by forming conjugation bridge. Through this conjugation bridge, the genetic material from one bacteria passes through the another bacteria. So through this conjugation tube, it happens. So this pili is helps in attachment as well as in the sexual reproduction in bacteria, especially the conjugation. Remember about that pili. Apart from pili, they also have finger-like structures called as fimbriae. Fimbriae helps them in attaching to the surfaces of various places. So they help in attachment. So pili and fimbriae, they don't bring about locomotion. They help in attaching to the surfaces. The locomotion in bacteria is brought about by the flagellum. Flagellum has a basal body. It arises from the basal body. It has a hook region, and from this hook region, the filament, long filament arises, which we call it as the flagellum. So remember about this. You should also remember the in the cell biology, we studied about the structure of flagellum. Please recollect that 9 plus 2 arrangement. In center, they had two arrangement of it, and they had 9 pairs arrangement towards the periphery. So the structure of cilia or flagella, you can just recollect. So the outermost layer of the bacteria has a slimy layer called as capsule. So inner to this capsule, they have cell wall, and inner to the cell wall, they have the plasma membrane. Now within the cytoplasm, you can notice that they are having ribosomes, which are of 70S type. Since they are prokaryotic organisms, Kingdom Monera consists of only prokaryotic organisms. They are of 70S type ribosomes with a larger subunit of 50S and a smaller subunit of 60S. That you notice. Plus the cytoplasm is there and you find the naked nucleus. So we call it as nucleoid. They don't have nuclear membrane, neither do they have the nucleolus. So we call them as nucleoid. So this is a false nucleus or incipient nucleus, or we also call it as nucleoid because they don't have a nuclear membrane, neither do they have nucleolus. So you find the circular DNA there. So we call it as nucleoid or incipient nucleus or false nucleus. Also, you can notice plastids within the cytoplasm. Plastids are circular self-replicating DNA, self-replicating circular DNA. So extranuclear DNA also they are outside the nucleus. So how do you define plasmid as self-replicating extranuclear circular DNA? Self-replicating extranuclear circular DNA, we call it as plasmids. So then the cytoplasm is there. They don't have cell organelles like mitochondria, Golgi complex, endoplasmic reticulum. This double membrane cell organelles are absent. So remember about this uh, as the structure of bacteria. So I'll be discussing this ultra structure of bacteria in detail in the next class. So just a brief introduction, I gave it to you in today's class. Okay, so let us uh, just go back to the description of Kingdom Monera, 5 kingdoms. We'll just have a recap of it. So for today's class, we'll just understand the structure of bacteria. That would be sufficient. We'll discuss the detail in tomorrow's class.